morning sun cast long shadows across the wheat fields of Kansas as Dr. Sarah Chen stepped out of her research facility. She breathed in the crisp air, watching the golden stalks sway in the gentle breeze. For 57 years, humanity had known peace. Not just the absence of war, but true, profound peace. The last military conflict had ended when Sarah was barely out of college. Since then, Earth had transformed into something beautiful. Cities bloomed with vertical gardens, oceans ran clean, and the scars of old wars had healed over with time and careful tending. "Another beautiful day for ugly politics," muttered Jake Morrison, Sarah's research partner, as he joined her outside the lab. His weathered hands held 2 steaming cups of coffee. Sarah accepted the cup gratefully. "The Galactic Council meeting. Today?" "Yep. Ambassador Williams is presenting our application for protected status." Jake's voice carried a hint of worry that matched the furrow in his brow. For the past decade, humanity had been seeking recognition as a peaceful species under the Galactic Protection Accords. It would guarantee Earth's safety and grant them access to advanced technologies that only peaceful civilizations could possess. Technologies that could solve their remaining energy problems and open the stars to human exploration. The holographic display in their lab suddenly chimed with an incoming transmission. Sarah and Jake hurried inside to see Ambassador Rebecca Williams materializing in the blue light of the quantum communicator. "Sarah, Jake," Rebecca's voice carried across the light years from the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime. "I wanted you to hear this directly from me before the news breaks." Sarah's stomach tightened. Rebecca's expression was grim. "The hegemony has filed a formal objection to our protected status application. They're claiming that humanity is too dangerous to be granted peaceful species recognition." "Dangerous?" Jake nearly spilled his coffee. "We haven't fired a shot in anger for over half a century." Rebecca nodded grimly. "That's exactly what I told them. But Overseer Vexahai was quite specific. He says our rapid technological advancement and our, what did he call it, concerning adaptability, makes us a potential threat to galactic stability." The transmission flickered as interference crackled through the quantum link. When Rebecca's image stabilized, her face was pale. "There's more. The hegemony has requested permission to conduct their own assessment of Earth's defensive capabilities. If we refuse..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "If we refuse, they'll recommend that the Council classify us as a hostile species." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. A hostile classification would mean isolation at best, and at worst, she didn't want to think about the worst case. "How long do we have?" she asked. 72 hours. The hegemony fleet is already en route." The transmission cut out, leaving Sarah and Jake staring at the empty air where their friend's image had been moments before. "Assessment," Jake said quietly. "That's a funny word for invasion." Sarah set down her coffee cup with trembling hands. For 57 years, humanity had chosen the path of peace. They had beaten their swords into plowshares, their missiles into space elevators, their tanks into farming equipment. The military was a shadow of its former self, mostly engineers and peacekeepers who helped with disasters and maintained the old defensive satellites that nobody expected to ever use again. But as Sarah looked out at the peaceful wheat fields, she remembered something her grandfather had told her long ago. He'd been a soldier in the last war, and his words came back to her now like an echo from a different world. "Never mistake a peaceful people for a defenseless one, Sarah. The strongest steel lies quiet in the scabbard until it's needed." She had never understood what he meant, until now. "Jake," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest, "we need to make some calls, starting with President Martinez." As they reached for the emergency communication array, neither of them noticed the way the shadows in the lab seemed to shift and move, or how the quantum communicator's readout showed impossible energy signatures, pulsing deep beneath the Earth's surface. Humanity had been peaceful for 57 years, but they had never been defenseless. Chapter 2. The Assessment begins. 3 days later, the sky above Earth changed forever. Commander Zarathul of the Hegemony Assessment Fleet watched through the bridge viewport, as the third planet of this insignificant star system grew larger. Her scaled hands gripped the command console as she reviewed the intelligence reports one more time. Humans, she hissed to her tactical officer. Such a young species, and yet they spread across their world like a virus. Look at these population centers, billions of them packed into sprawling cities. Shall we begin with the major military installations, Commander? Asked Lieutenant Kethvar, his four eyes studying the holographic display of Earth's surface. Zarathul's lip curled in, what might have been amusement. Military installations? Look again, Lieutenant. Their so-called military consists of a few thousand peacekeepers and some museum pieces they call defensive satellites. No, we'll start with something that will truly test their capabilities. She gestured to the tactical display, where major population centers pulsed like heartbeats across the planetary map. New York City. 12 million humans packed into a relatively small area. We'll deploy a Class 7 intimidation protocol, full atmospheric entry, weapons charged but not firing. If they truly are as peaceful as they claim, they'll surrender immediately to protect their civilians. And if they don't surrender, then we'll know they've been lying about their peaceful nature all along. The massive hegemony dreadnought, inexorable, descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling mountain. At 3 kilometers long and bristling with enough firepower to crack a planet's crust, it was designed to make any reasonable species reconsider their position. The ship's speakers broadcast a message in 17 languages as it settled into a hover 2 kilometers above Manhattan. Attention, humans of Earth. You are being assessed for compliance with Galactic peace accords. Submit to immediate inspection or face the consequences of hostile classification. On the streets below, humans scattered like startled birds, but not all of them. Some stood in the open spaces, looking up at the alien vessel with expressions of wonder rather than terror. Others held up devices, primitive recording equipment, as if they wanted to document this moment for posterity. Curious, muttered Zarathul. No immediate surrender, but no hostile action either. Increase intimidation to Class 8. The inexorable powered up its main weapons. Brilliant energy coursed along its hull, and the air itself seemed to tremble with barely contained violence. The message repeated, but this time with an edge of menace that translated across any language barrier. In the Situation Room deep beneath the White House, President Elena Martinez watched the feed from New York, with a calm that surprised even her closest advisors. Madam President, said General Harrison, the aging head of Earth's minimal defense forces, we should evacuate the city. That ship could level Manhattan in seconds. No evacuations, Elena said firmly. An evacuation would be seen as either submission or preparation for conflict. Either way, we lose. Then what do you suggest? Asked Secretary of State Williams, who had just returned from the Galactic Council. That ship is demanding immediate inspection. Elena turned to the woman sitting quietly in the corner of the room. Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from the tablet she'd been studying. Dr. Chen, your assessment? Sarah stood, her movements careful and deliberate. The hegemony isn't here to assess whether we're peaceful. They already know we are. They're here to find out what we're capable of when we're not. Meaning? They want to know what happens when humanity feels truly threatened, when our backs are against the wall, when we have to choose between surrender and survival. The room fell silent except for the hum of electronics and the distant sound of the alien ship's engines. So what do we do? President Martinez asked. Sarah looked up at the screen showing the massive alien vessel hovering over Manhattan. 12 million people lived in that city. 12 million human beings going about their lives, probably scared, but trying to be brave. We show them who we really are, she said quietly. On the bridge of the inexorable, Commander Zarathul frowned at her sensors. Lieutenant, are you detecting any unusual energy readings from the planet's surface? I'm not sure, Commander. There are some anomalous readings, but they're unlike anything in our databases. Very faint, but they seem to be coming from deep underground. Multiple locations across the planet. Deep underground? Zarathul's scales rippled with unease. How deep? The readings suggest several kilometers down, possibly deeper. And, Commander? The lieutenant's voice carried a note of confusion. The energy signatures are consistent with our own power cells, but that's impossible. These humans barely have primitive fusion technology. Before Zarathul could respond, her communications officer called out from across the bridge. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. Single point of origin. Should I put it through? Do it. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human female with graying hair and steady eyes. She was sitting at what appeared to be a simple wooden desk, with bookshelves visible behind her. I am President Martinez of the United Earth Government, the human said in accented but clear Standard Galactic. I understand you wish to assess our defensive capabilities. Zarathul leaned forward. You speak Standard Galactic. Impressive for such a primitive species. I am Commander Zarathul of the Hegemony Assessment Fleet. You have 1 hour to submit to complete inspection of your military capabilities or face classification as a hostile species. President Martinez smiled, and something in that smile made Zarathul's combat instincts stir uneasily. Commander, I want to be perfectly clear about something. We are a peaceful people. We have been at peace for 57 years. We do not want conflict with anyone, including your hegemony. Then submit to inspection. I didn't say we would submit to anything, Martinez continued, her voice remaining calm and reasonable. I said we are peaceful. There's a difference. Explain. Martinez leaned back in her chair. You see that city beneath your ship? 12 million people live there. They're teachers and artists, engineers and dreamers. They grow flowers on their balconies and worry about their children's futures. They are peaceful people. Your point. My point, Commander, is that you are threatening 12 million peaceful people, and that changes things. Before Zarathul could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the bridge of the inexorable. Commander, shouted the sensor operator, I'm detecting massive energy buildups all across the planet. Underground installations are coming online. What kind of installations? I don't know. The energy signatures are off the charts. They're using technology I don't recognize. On the screen, President Martinez was still smiling that unsettling smile. 57 years ago, Commander, humanity learned the terrible cost of war. We decided, as a species, that we would never again choose violence as our first option. We would be peaceful, we would be kind, we would build instead of destroy. The alarms on the bridge grew louder. But we also decided something else, Martinez continued. We decided that if anyone ever threatened the peaceful life we had built, if anyone ever tried to harm the children playing in our parks or the families sleeping safely in their homes, well, we would remind them why we chose peace in the first place. Commander. The tactical officer's voice cracked with panic. Weapon signatures. Massive weapon signatures emerging from underground installations across the planet. I count, by the void, I count over 10,000 individual targeting arrays. On the screen, President Martinez stood up from her desk. You wanted to assess our defensive capabilities, Commander. Assessment begins now. The transmission cut out. In the darkness that followed, Commander Zarathul realized that humanity's 57 years of peace hadn't been spent doing nothing. They had been spent getting ready. Chapter 3. The Truth. Revealed, the first indication that the hegemony had made a terrible mistake came when their sensors began screaming warnings about energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Deep beneath the Kansas wheat fields where Dr. Sarah Chen had been enjoying her morning coffee just days before, something vast stirred to life. Kilometers of hardened tunnels carved from solid rock over the span of 50 years, hummed with power that made the hegemony's most advanced weapons look like children's toys. Commander Zarathul stared at her tactical display in growing horror. Red dots were appearing across the Earth's surface like a rash. Each dot represented a weapons emplacement that her sensors couldn't have detected until it activated. How many? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. 12,743 confirmed installations, Commander, all showing active targeting locks on our fleet. Lieutenant Kethvar's 4 eyes were wide with disbelief. Commander, Some of these energy signatures are reading higher than our main guns. That's impossible. They're technology level. Commander! The communications officer interrupted. We're being hailed. All frequencies. The signal is coming from everywhere. Put it through. This time, the face that appeared on their screen wasn't President Martinez. It was Dr. Sarah Chen. But she looked different now. Gone was the gentle scientist enjoying her morning coffee. The woman looking back at them had the steady gaze of someone who had seen too much and prepared for worse. Commander Zarathul, Sarah said, her voice carrying easily across the vacuum of space. My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, Director of the Terra Defense Initiative. I believe you wanted to understand humanity's defensive capabilities. Terra Defense Initiative? Zarathul found her voice. Our intelligence reports showed no such organization. That's because it doesn't officially exist. 57 years ago, when humanity chose peace, we also chose preparation. We decided that never again would we be caught defenseless when someone decided to take away everything we'd built. The tactical display continued to fill with red dots. Thousands upon thousands of them. For 5 decades, Commander, while the galaxy saw us as peaceful farmers and dreamers, we were digging. While we grew flowers and wrote poetry, we were building. While we celebrated our children's birthdays and fell in love and lived beautiful, peaceful lives, we were getting ready for the day someone would try to take all of that away from us. Sarah's image was joined by others, men and women of different ages and ethnicities, but all with the same steady, determined expression. Allow me to introduce my colleagues, Sarah continued. Admiral Chen Okafor, formerly of the Nigerian Space Command, now Director of Orbital Defense. General Petrov, formerly of the Russian Federation, now head of our deep strike capabilities. Dr. Yamamoto, formerly of the Japanese Technology Division, now our Chief of Advanced Weapons Development. Each name sent a chill down Zarathul's spine. These weren't the peaceful farmers and artists the hegemony had expected to find. These were warriors who had chosen to become shepherds, but had never forgotten how to be wolves. The Terra Defense Initiative has been preparing for this day since the end of our last war, Admiral Chen Okafor said, her Nigerian accent crisp and clear. Every major population center on Earth is protected by installations you cannot detect until they choose to reveal themselves. Every approach vector to our planet is covered by weapons that could crack moons. General Petrov leaned forward, his scarred face impassive. We have deep strike capabilities that can reach any point in this star system within minutes. We have defensive shields that could stop a supernova. We have weapons that rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas. Dr. Yamamoto nodded calmly. For 57 years, Commander, humanity's greatest minds have worked on a single problem. How do we ensure that no one can ever threaten the peaceful life we've built? The answer, as it turns out, was quite simple. And what was that answer? Zarathul asked, though she was beginning to suspect she already knew. We make the cost of threatening us too high for anyone to pay, Sarah said simply. On the bridge of the inexorable, the sensor readings were becoming more alarming by the second. The energy buildups weren't stopping. If anything, they were accelerating. Commander, whispered the tactical officer, I'm reading weapon signatures that are... Commander, some of these installations are showing power outputs equivalent to stellar cores. That should be impossible. Show me. The main display shifted to show a cross-section analysis of Earth. What they saw defied belief. The planet wasn't just defended, it was transformed. A vast network of tunnels, power conduits, and weapons emplacements stretched through the crust, like a nervous system. It was as if someone had turned the entire planet into a fortress while still allowing 12 billion humans to live peaceful lives on its surface. My God, breathed Lieutenant Kethavar. They turned their entire world into a weapon. On the screen, Dr. Sarah Chen was still speaking, her voice calm and reasonable despite the incredible display of force being revealed around her. You see, Commander, the thing about peaceful people is that they understand the true cost of violence. They know what war really means. Not glory or conquest, but mothers who will never see their children again, homes turned to ash, dreams buried under rubble. The display showed more details now. Not just weapons, but manufacturing facilities, resource extraction operations, research laboratories. All hidden, all interconnected, all operating beneath a world that appeared to be nothing more than a garden planet inhabited by pacifists. When you understand that cost, Sarah continued, you do everything in your power to make sure it never has to be paid again. So we made a promise to ourselves and to our children. No one would ever again be able to threaten the peaceful life we had built. No one would ever again be able to make us choose between surrender and survival. Admiral Chen Okafor smiled, and it was not a kind expression. Because we chose survival 57 years ago, and we've been preparing for that choice ever since. Commander, the sensor operator called out, his voice tight with panic. I'm detecting massive power buildups in the deep installations. If these readings are accurate, they're preparing to fire weapons that could... Commander, they could sterilize our entire fleet. Zarathul looked at the tactical display. Her mighty fleet, the pride of the hegemony, looked suddenly small and fragile against the backdrop of Earth's revealed defenses. 12,700 weapons installations, each one apparently capable of devastating any ship ever built. This is impossible, she said, more to herself than to anyone else. Our intelligence reports, they said you were primitive, peaceful farmers and dreamers. On the screen, Sarah Chen's expression softened slightly, becoming almost sad. We are farmers and dreamers, Commander. We grow the most beautiful flowers you've ever seen. We write poetry that would make you weep. We love our children and hope for their futures and work every day to make the galaxy a little bit brighter. Her expression hardened again. But we are also the descendants of warriors. We are the children of survivors. We are the heirs of people who fought through hell itself to give us the chance to choose peace. And if you think that 57 years of peace has made us forget how to fight, the weapon signatures on the tactical display reached critical levels. You are about to learn why we chose peace in the first place. Chapter 4. The Galaxy awakens in the depths of space, aboard the Hegemony command ship, Inexorable. Commander Zarathul faced the most difficult decision of her military career. Her fleet was outnumbered, outgunned, and completely outmaneuvered by an enemy that shouldn't have existed. Status report, she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding her. All ships reporting targeting locks, Commander. The humans have weapons trained on every vessel in our fleet. Long-range sensors are detecting similar installations throughout their star system. Jupiter's moons appear to be fortified. There are defensive platforms around their star that we completely missed on our initial scans. Lieutenant Kethavar looked up from his station, his four eyes wide with something approaching respect. Commander, how did they hide all of this? Our intelligence gathering is the best in the galaxy. Before Zarathul could answer, the communications console chimed with an incoming message. But this wasn't from Earth. The quantum signature indicated it was coming from Nexus Prime, the seat of the Galactic Council. Commander Zarathul, came the familiar voice of Overseer Vexhai, her hegemony superior. Report your status immediately. We're receiving some very concerning sensor readings from your location. Zarathul straightened. Overseer, the humans have revealed defensive capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates. They appear to have spent the last 57 years preparing for exactly this scenario. Explain. Sir, they've turned their entire planet into a fortress. We're detecting over 12,000 weapons installations, all of them showing power, signatures that rival or exceed our most advanced systems. They also appear to have defensive positions throughout their star system that our initial reconnaissance completely failed to detect. There was a long pause from Nexus Prime. Commander, are you telling me that a species we classified as primitive, pacifists, has been secretly building one of the most advanced defense networks in the galaxy? That appears to be the case, sir. Another pause, longer this time. Stand by, Commander. Do not under any circumstances initiate hostilities. The Council is reassessing the situation. Back on Earth, in the hidden command center beneath the Kansas wheat fields, Dr. Sarah Chen was coordinating with defense installations across the globe. The massive displays showed the hegemony fleet hanging motionless above Earth, apparently paralyzed by indecision. "Status report from all sectors," she called out. "Orbital defense reports all platforms active and tracking," came Admiral Chen Okafor's voice from the lunar installations. "We have clear shots on all enemy vessels." "Deep strike confirms readiness," reported General Petrov from somewhere beneath the Siberian tundra. "Our long-range capabilities can reach their staging areas beyond the heliopause if they attempt to call for reinforcements." "Advanced Weapons Division standing by," added Dr. Yamamoto from her laboratory complex under Mount Fuji. "All exotic. Systems are charged and ready for deployment." Sarah nodded, then activated the quantum communicator connecting her to President Martinez in Washington. "Madam President, we have them. They're completely neutralized. What are your orders?" On the screen, President Martinez looked tired but determined. "Have they made any aggressive moves?" "No, ma'am. They're just sitting there. I think they're trying to figure out how we managed to surprise them so completely." "Good. Open a channel to their commander. It's time to finish this conversation." Once again, Commander Zarathul found herself face to face with humanity's leadership. But this time the dynamic had completely changed. She was no longer looking down at a primitive species from a position of overwhelming superiority. She was looking at equals, or perhaps she was beginning to suspect superiors. "Commander," President Martinez said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "I believe you now understand our position." Yes. Your defensive capabilities are far beyond anything we anticipated." "Good. Now let me make something perfectly clear. We did not build these defenses to conquer anyone. We built them so that we would never have to choose between submission and annihilation. We built them so that our children could grow up in a galaxy where being peaceful doesn't make you a victim." Martinez leaned forward in her chair. 57 years ago, humanity decided that war was a choice, not an inevitability. We chose peace, but we also chose to make sure that choice would always remain ours to make." On her tactical display, Commander Zarathul could see the targeting solutions her weapons officers had worked out for the human installations. Even with their advanced firepower, even with the element of surprise, the projections were grim. The hegemony fleet might destroy a few hundred of the human installations before being completely annihilated. "What do you want from us?" she asked. "The same thing we've always wanted, Commander, to be left alone to live our peaceful lives. But now you understand that peaceful doesn't mean helpless." Dr. Sarah Chen's voice joined the conversation. "Commander, we've been monitoring your communications with your superiors. We know that your overseer is reassessing the situation. We'd like to help with that assessment." "How?" "By giving you something to take back to the Galactic Council. Something that will make them understand exactly what they're dealing with." The main display in the Human Command Center shifted to show a stellar map. But this wasn't just any map. It showed the locations of every hegemony installation within 50 light-years of Earth. "We know where your supply depots are," Admiral Chen Okafor said calmly. "We know the locations of your shipyards, your command centers, your research facilities." General Petrov added, "We have been preparing for this conversation for 5 decades, Commander. That preparation included learning everything there was to know about potential threats to Earth." "We could have struck first," Dr. Yamamoto said, her voice clinical and precise. "We could have eliminated every hegemony installation in this sector before you even knew we existed. We chose not to, because that would have made us aggressors." Sarah Chen looked directly into the camera. "But Commander, if you force us to defend ourselves, if you make us choose between our survival and yours, we want you to understand that it won't be a choice at all." Commander Zarathul stared at the display showing the locations of installations that were supposed to be among the hegemony's most closely guarded secrets. The implications were staggering. If the humans had this information, if they had been watching and preparing for so long. "How?" she asked. "How did you learn all of this without anyone knowing?" President Martinez smiled, and for the first time, there was genuine warmth in the expression. "Commander, what do you think 12 billion peaceful humans do in their spare time? They explore, they learn, they build things. They solve problems. And when they work together toward a common goal, she gestured to the displays showing the vast defensive network that had been built in secret over 5 decades. They can accomplish things that would seem impossible to anyone who underestimates them. The quantum communicator chimed with another incoming transmission from Nexus Prime. This time, it wasn't just Overseer Vexhai. The signal pattern indicated a direct connection to the Galactic Council chambers. "This is Council Speaker Mordain of the Galactic Council," came a new voice, deep and resonant with authority. "Commander Zarathul, you will immediately cease all aggressive actions and withdraw your fleet to a safe distance. Council Speaker, the humans have revealed. We are aware of what the humans have revealed, Commander. We are also aware that your assessment mission has demonstrated something far more important than humanity's defensive capabilities." Zarathul waited. "It has demonstrated their restraint. Any species capable of building such defenses could have used them to conquer their neighbors. Instead, they chose to remain hidden, to appear weak, to let others underestimate them. That, Commander, is not the behavior of a hostile species. That is the behavior of a truly peaceful one." On Earth, President Martinez was receiving her own communication from the Galactic Council. The holographic image of Council Speaker Mordain materialized in the Situation Room. "President Martinez, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally apologize for this misunderstanding. It appears that our assessment protocols failed to account for the possibility of a species that could be both peaceful and prepared." Martinez nodded graciously. "Council Speaker, we understand the Council's position. The galaxy can be a dangerous place, and you have a responsibility to protect peaceful species from aggressive ones." "Indeed. Which brings me to the matter of your application for protected status under the Galactic Peace Accords." "Yes? Your application is hereby approved, with a special notation. Humanity is classified not merely as a peaceful species but as a guardian species, one capable of protecting not only itself but others who choose the path of peace." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Guardian species? I'm not familiar with that classification. It's rarely used, President Martinez. In fact, you are only the 3rd species in galactic history to earn that designation. Guardian species are granted special privileges under galactic law, including the right to defend other peaceful species from aggression and the authority to maintain whatever defensive capabilities they deem necessary." In the command center beneath Kansas, Dr. Sarah Chen was monitoring the conversation with a mixture of relief and lingering tension. 57 years of preparation, and it had all come down to a single moment of revelation. Dr. Chen came, a voice from her communications console. It was Commander Zarathul. "Yes, Commander? I have a question, if you don't mind. Go ahead." "If we had actually attacked one of your city, if we had harmed your civilians, what would have happened?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, considering her answer. "Commander, do you know what the last words were of the human military commander who surrendered at the end of our final war?" "No," he said. "We beat our swords into plowshares, but we remember how to forge them again." "That was 57 years ago, Commander. We've had a lot of time to remember." The silence that followed carried more weight than any threat could have. Finally, Commander Zarathul spoke again. "I think I understand now why you chose peace." "Do you?" "Because you're the only one strong enough to make that choice and have it mean something." Sarah smiled, the first genuinely relaxed expression she'd worn in days. "Welcome to the neighborhood, Commander. I think you're going to find that peaceful species make much better neighbors than hostile ones." As the hegemony fleet began its withdrawal from Earth space, and as the hidden defensive installations powered down to standby mode, the galaxy began to process a new reality. Humanity had been peaceful for 57 years, but they had never been defenseless, and now everyone knew it. Epilogue. The new balance 6 months after what historians would later call the Terra Revelation, Ambassador Rebecca Williams stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime's council chambers, looking out at the stars. The view was spectacular, dozens of star systems visible to the naked eye, each one home to billions of thinking beings living their lives in peace. "Penny, for your thoughts?" came a familiar voice behind her. Rebecca turned to see Dr. Sarah Chen, approaching, carrying 2 cups of what appeared to be coffee. Real coffee, not the synthetic stuff most species in the galaxy preferred. "Sarah, what are you doing here? I thought you were back on Earth running your mysterious defense programs." Sarah handed her one of the cups. "I was, but the Council requested a meeting with the Terra Defense Initiative. Apparently, we've become something of a legend." "I can imagine. The story of Earth's secret defenses has spread to every corner of the galaxy. Some species are calling you the Silent Guardians. Others prefer the Iron Shepherds. And what are the hegemony calling us?" Rebecca grinned. "Careful neighbors. Commander Zarathul has apparently become one of our biggest advocates. She's been telling anyone who will listen that humanity represents the perfect balance between strength and restraint." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping their coffee and watching the stars. "Rebecca," Sarah said eventually, "do you think we did the right thing? Hiding what we were capable of for so long, do you?" I think we did what we had to do. If we had revealed our capabilities 50 years ago, the galaxy would have seen us as a threat. Every species with aggressive tendencies would have viewed us as a challenge to be met. Every peaceful species would have tried to hide behind us. And now they know we chose peace from a position of strength, not weakness. That makes all the difference." Rebecca nodded. "The Council seems to agree. Did you hear about the new protocols they're implementing?" "No. What protocols?" "The Terra protocols. Any species applying for peaceful status will now be evaluated not just on their current behavior, but on their capacity for defense. The Council has realized that truly peaceful species need to be able to defend their choice to be peaceful." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "They're encouraging other species to build secret defense networks. They're encouraging other species to be prepared. There's a difference." "Is there?" Rebecca smiled. "You tell me. You're the one who spent 50 years building the most advanced defense network in the galaxy while maintaining a public image as harmless farmers and dreamers." Sarah laughed, a sound that held both relief and lingering tension. "Fair point." They were interrupted by a soft chime from the communication panel near the observation window. Rebecca activated it, and the holographic image of President Martinez appeared. "Rebecca, Sarah, I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Just admiring the view, Madam President," Rebecca replied. "What can we do for you?" "I have some news. The Kethmaran Republic has formally requested our assistance." Sarah set down her coffee cup. "Assistance with what?" "They're facing aggression from the Zathul Empire. The Zathul have apparently decided that the Kethmaran's peaceful nature makes them easy targets for conquest. And they want us to..." "What? Fight their war for them?" "No," Martinez said, her expression serious. "They want us to do what we do best. They want us to make the cost of aggression too high for the Zathul to pay." Rebecca frowned. "Are we prepared for that kind of commitment? Defending other species across the galaxy?" "That's what I'm calling to discuss. The Terra Defense Initiative was built to protect Earth. But our new status as a guardian species comes with certain expectations." Sarah was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. "Madam President, when we built our defenses, we made a promise. No one would ever again be able to threaten the peaceful life we had built. But that was about us, about humanity. Are we prepared to extend that promise to other species?" "I think," Martinez said slowly, "that's exactly what we need to decide. The galaxy is watching us, Sarah. Every peaceful species is wondering if humanity will use its strength to protect others, or if we'll retreat back to our own little corner of space." Rebecca activated her tablet, pulling up intelligence reports. "The Kethmaran situation is complicated. They're genuinely peaceful. No military to speak of, no weapons programs, nothing but pure pacifism. They've been that way for over 2 centuries. And the Zathul Empire? Traditional aggressive expansionists. They've conquered 17 star systems in the past decade, always targeting species they perceive as weak or defenseless." Sarah walked to the observation window, looking out at the stars with new eyes. Somewhere out there, Billions of peaceful beings were going about their lives, raising their children, creating art, falling in love, dreaming of better futures. And somewhere else, aggressive species were looking at those peaceful beings and seeing opportunities. "How many ships does the Zathul Empire have in their invasion fleet?" she asked. Rebecca consulted her tablet. "Current intelligence suggests approximately 300 vessels, including 15 Dreadnought-class warships. And how many installations would we need to deploy to neutralize that threat?" "Based on our projections, maybe 20, 30, at the outside." Sarah turned back to face the holographic image of President Martinez. "Madam President, I have a proposal." "I'm listening." "We don't just help the Kethmorans, we make a statement. We show the galaxy exactly what it means to be a guardian species." Martinez leaned forward in her chair. "What did you have in mind?" "We offer the Zathul Empire a choice. They can withdraw from Kethmoran space and find something else to do with their time, or they can discover what happens when they threaten people under humanity's protection. And if they choose to test us?" Sarah's expression grew cold and determined. "Then we remind the galaxy why we chose peace in the first place." 3 weeks later, the Zathul invasion fleet arrived at the edge of Kethmoran space, expecting to find a defenseless system ripe for conquest. Instead, they found something that would reshape their understanding of galactic politics forever. Admiral Krextar of the Zathul Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship Decimator, studying the tactical displays with growing confusion. The Kethmoran system should have been completely defenseless. Their intelligence had confirmed that the species had no military capabilities whatsoever. So why were his sensors detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system? "Status report," he growled to his tactical officer. "Admiral, we're detecting unknown installations on 17 different asteroids, 3 moons, and what appears to be a mobile platform near the system's outer gas giant. The energy signatures are, sir, they're off the charts." "Unknown installations? The Kethmorans don't have the technology to build defensive platforms." "No, sir, they don't, but someone does." Before Admiral Krextar could demand clarification, his communications officer called out from across the bridge. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's... Sir, it's in perfect Zathul." "From the Kethmorans?" "No, sir. The signal is identifying itself as originating from the Terra Defense Initiative." Krextar's blood ran cold. Every military commander in the galaxy had heard about the Terra revelation by now. The story of humanity's hidden defenses had become legend, and nightmare depending on your perspective. "Put it through." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Admiral Krextar found himself looking at a human female with steady eyes and graying hair. She was sitting in what appeared to be a command center with displays showing tactical information behind her. "Admiral Krextar," the human said, her voice calm and professional. "I am Admiral Chen Okafor of the Terra Defense Initiative. I believe you are here to invade the Kethmoran Republic. This system is not under human protection," Krextar snarled. "You have no authority here." "Actually, Admiral, we do. The Kethmoran Republic has formally requested our assistance under the Guardian Species protocols established by the Galactic Council. As of 72 hours ago, any act of aggression against the Kethmoran people will be considered an act of aggression against humanity." Krextar studied his tactical displays again. The unknown installations were still there, still showing impossible energy signatures. "You're bluffing. Even humanity couldn't deploy a defensive network to another star system in just 3 weeks. Admiral Chen Okafor smiled, and it was not a reassuring expression. "Admiral, you're absolutely correct. We couldn't deploy a defensive network to another star system in 3 weeks. Krextar felt a moment of satisfaction. "We deployed it 6 months ago." The satisfaction evaporated instantly. 6 months ago? But the Kethmorans only requested our help 3 weeks ago. "Admiral, the Terra Defense Initiative has been preparing for situations like this one for over 50 years. Did you really think we only planned for the defense of Earth?" On his tactical display, more energy signatures were appearing. Not just the installations they had initially detected, but dozens more. Hidden weapons platforms, concealed manufacturing facilities, supply depots disguised as asteroids. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Admiral, came another voice from the transmission. This one belonged to a human male with scarred features and a Russian accent. "This is General Petrov. Perhaps I can clarify the situation for you." The display behind the human shifted to show a detailed analysis of the Zathul fleet. Ship classes, weapons loadouts, even personnel rosters. "We have been tracking your fleet since it left Zathul space 2 months ago. We know that you have 307 vessels, including 15 Dreadnought-class warships and 42 heavy cruisers. We know that your fleet carries approximately 200,000 personnel. We know that your primary objective is the conquest of the Kethmoran industrial systems, with secondary objectives including the enslavement of the Kethmoran population." Admiral Krexter stared at the display in shock. The information was completely accurate down to details that should have been classified at the highest levels. "We also know," General Petrov continued, "that your fleet's greatest weakness is your over-reliance on centralized command structures. Your ships are designed to operate as a unified force under single command. If that command structure were to be disrupted, your fleet would be effectively neutralized." "Are you threatening me?" "Admiral," came a third voice, this one belonging to a human female with a Japanese accent. "This is Dr. Yamamoto, Chief of Advanced Weapons Development. We don't make threats. We make statements of capability." The tactical display shifted again, this time showing targeting solutions. Perfect, mathematically precise targeting solutions for every ship in the Zathul fleet. "We have weapons trained on your flagship, Admiral. Weapons that could disable your command systems without harming your crew. We also have weapons trained on every ship in your fleet. If you choose to test our resolve, you will discover that your entire invasion force can be neutralized in approximately 17 minutes. Admiral Krextar looked at his own tactical officers. They were frantically working at their stations, trying to find targeting solutions for the human installations, but the humans had positioned themselves perfectly, protected by asteroids hidden in sensor shadows, positioned at ranges that made effective counterattack nearly impossible. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Admiral Chen Okafor leaned forward. "We want you to leave, Admiral. We want you to return to Zathul space and find something constructive to do with your time. We want you to spread the word that peaceful species are no longer defenseless prey. And if we refuse, then you'll join a very short list of military commanders who discovered what happens when humanity has to choose between protecting innocent lives and showing mercy to aggressors." General Petrov's scarred face appeared on the screen again. "Admiral, I fought in humanity's last war. I know what real combat looks like. What you're contemplating isn't combat, it's suicide." Dr. Yamamoto added, "Our weapons are designed to disable rather than destroy, Admiral. We would prefer to send you home with your fleet intact and your personnel unharmed. But if you force us to defend the Kethmoran people, we will do so with whatever level of force is necessary." Admiral Krexter closed his eyes, considering his options. His fleet was powerful by galactic standards, more than enough to conquer most star systems. But the humans had turned the entire Kethmoran system into a fortress, just as they had done with their own world. "How?" he asked finally. "How did you build all of this without anyone knowing?" Admiral Chen Okafor's expression softened slightly. "Admiral, what do you think 12 billion humans have been doing for the past 57 years, while the galaxy thought we were harmless farmers and dreamers? I don't know. We've been exploring, learning, building, preparing. We've been quietly establishing supply lines, manufacturing capabilities, and defensive positions in hundreds of star systems. Not to conquer anyone, Admiral, but to ensure that species who choose peace never have to choose between submission and annihilation. You've been building an empire. No, Admiral, we've been building a safety net, a guarantee that choosing peace doesn't make you a victim." The bridge of the decimator was silent, except for the hum of electronics and the quiet conversations of his officers trying to find some tactical advantage that didn't exist. "Admiral," came a new voice from the transmission. It was President Martinez calling from Earth. "I want to make something clear. This isn't about conquest or dominance. This is about choice. The Kethmorans chose to be peaceful. The Zathul Empire chose to see that as weakness to be exploited. Now you get to choose what happens next. What are my options? You can order your fleet to withdraw and return to Zathul, space. You can find ways to expand your civilization that don't involve conquering peaceful neighbors. You can become part of the galactic community instead of a threat to it. And if we choose not to, then you'll discover that humanity's 57 years of peace were spent learning how to end conflicts very, very quickly. Admiral Kregstar looked at his tactical displays one more time. 300 ships under his command, hundreds of thousands of soldiers and crew members whose lives depended on his next decision, against an enemy that had spent half a century preparing for exactly this moment. It wasn't really a choice at all. Fleet Command, he said quietly into his communicator. All ships, begin withdrawal to the edge of the system. Set course for home. Sir? His tactical officer asked. We're withdrawing? We're leaving, Lieutenant. This system is under the protection of the Terra Defense Initiative. That means it's under the protection of people who could destroy us before we even knew we were under attack, but who would prefer to send us home alive? On the screen, Admiral Chen Okafor nodded respectfully. A wise decision, Admiral. Safe travels. As the Zathul fleet began its withdrawal from Keth Morin space, word of the confrontation spread rapidly across the galaxy. Within days, every species with aggressive tendencies had received the same message. Peaceful worlds were no longer easy targets. Humanity had become the shepherds of the galaxy's sheep, and the wolves were learning to be very, very careful. Backham. On Earth in the command center beneath the Kansas wheat fields, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the tactical displays as the Zathul fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Around her, dozens of technicians were powering down the weapon systems that had just prevented a war. Status report from all installations, she called out. Keth Moran defense grid powering down to standby mode, came Admiral Chen Okafor's voice from the system they had just protected. All weapon systems remain operational but inactive. Deep strike capabilities returning to stealth mode, reported General Petrov from his hidden installation near Saturn. Long-range monitoring of Zathul movements continues. Advanced weapons. Division securing all exotic systems, added Dr. Yamamoto from her laboratory complex. All prototypes returned to safe storage. Sarah nodded, then activated her personal communicator to contact President Martinez. Madam President, the Zathul fleet has withdrawn. The Keth Morin Republic is secure. Casualties? None. The situation was resolved through deterrence rather than force. Good. That's how I prefer these things to end. Sarah smiled as she looked out at the wheat fields visible through the command center's camouflaged windows. Above ground, farmers were harvesting their crops, children were playing in schoolyards, and artists were creating beautiful works that would outlast any weapon ever built. 57 years ago, humanity had chosen peace. Today, they had proven that the choice still meant something. In the years that followed, the Terra Defense Initiative would intervene in dozens of similar situations, not as conquerors or rulers, but as protectors of those who had chosen the path of peace. The galaxy gradually became a safer place for dreamers and farmers, artists and philosophers, and humanity continued to tend their gardens and write their poetry and raise their children in peace. But they never forgot the lesson their grandfather species had taught them so long ago. The strongest steel lies quiet in the scabbard until it's needed. The galaxy had learned that lesson too, some the easy way, others the hard way. But eventually, everyone learned. Peace was not weakness. It was a choice, and some choices were worth defending. The end.